Hello again. This is the third video in my series chronicling my quest to find the perfect new car. This is also hopefully the final video in the series chronicling this quest because I have completed my new car research this week and I have picked the final winner for what I want to be my new car. So in the last video, and if you haven't seen the first two videos on this series, you should, because in those videos I detail why I'm buying a new car, what new cars I've been considering, and all the details like that. So in the last video in this series, a lot of you guys in the comments implored that I test drive two vehicles that I otherwise was not going to. The Honda HR-V and the Subaru Crosstrek. I was originally considering the Honda HR-V and then struck it off the list because it is the most expensive vehicle of all the ones I was considering, and I felt like for that much money, you just didn't get a lot of value for your dollar. Especially because, well, not especially, but also because unless you bought the $40,000 top trim, you could only get the car in white, black, or 50 different shades of gray. And if I'm buying a new car to have for potentially, hopefully, 10 years or longer, be damned if I'm going to get it in white, black, or 50 different shades of gray. Now, the Subaru Crosstrek was a car that I hadn't been considering at all from the beginning because I just don't believe in the longevity of Subarus. I'm sorry, but it's true. And a lot of you guys are telling me that that used to be the case, but it isn't anymore. I'm sorry, but I'm just not sure I believe that yet. So, I wasn't considering the Crosstrek or any Subaru at all, but you guys implored that I test drive one, and I thought, you know what? I'm someone who takes good care of their vehicles, at least I think I do. The Focus has made it this far, made it this long. It hasn't made it as many kilometers as it should. Maybe I'll just test drive the Subaru and I'll test drive the Honda in case there's some sort of revelation to be had. Because you recall a very common theme that we've unfortunately had in this quest is seat comfort. I'm a large person, and this new crop of crossovers seems to like having either a narrow driver's compartment or seats with really firm, aggressive bolstering that's just really uncomfortable on my thighs. So, I test drove the Honda, I test drove the Subaru, but most importantly, when I was in the city this week, I test drove the Mazda CX-5 because you recall, originally, my top pick for a new car was the Mazda CX-30, and then I test drove one and found it egregiously uncomfortable. So I decided to, I had a deposit down on a CX-30, I decided to move it to a CX-5 because I did some research and I found even visually, just in photographs, the CX-5 seats are wider and most importantly, they're flatter. So I had a good idea that perhaps I would find a CX-5 comfortable. So I test drove those three vehicles in my trip to the city this week. So, how did I do? We'll talk about the Mazda CX-5 first. And I have a rather unfortunate story to tell after I describe the test drive. So, they had a CX-5 that I could test drive. The CX-5 I have a deposit on isn't coming for another couple of weeks. But they had a CX-5 that I could test drive. It was one trim level higher than the one that I have coming. And so I test drove it, and here is how that went. So we're here in a Mazda CX-5, not my CX-5, but a CX-5. I think it's 1 or 2 trim levels above mine, but it's mostly what the one I have coming's got to be like. And of course, the big question is, what's the seat comfort going to be like? Out of all the cars I've test driven so far, this is by far, aside from a Hyundai Venue that my mother and I test drove for fun, has the most comfortable seats of anything I've test driven. I can still feel the bolstering a little bit, but it is not painful like it was in the CX-30, and I think it's better than even the Nissan Qashqai. I think it's about similar to the Nissan Rogue, but this has by far been the most comfortable car I've been in so far. You know, when I looked at it at the outside, I thought, is this a little more car than I'm equipped to handle? But I drove it for a few minutes before parking here, and no, I'm quite comfortable driving it so far. It's very, very nice. The seat in every other way is supremely comfortable. And everything is just very nice. I'm very comfortable. I got the seat all the way back and all the way down as per usual for me, and that seems to be just right. But we've been exploring all the features. There's a lot of room in here. It's much more spacious than the CX-30. So yeah, overall I'm just much more comfortable, which I sound like a broken record, but that means more than anything. So there's 1 or maybe 2 more things I'm going to test drive, but I'll be surprised if I like anything more than this. So at the time of this taping, there's 11 or 12 days to when my CX-5 comes, and so I have a good feeling that it could be the winner. So we're gonna drive this one around for a little while longer, and that'll be it. And hopefully I can leave excited for what's to come in the next couple of weeks. So finally, some good news. I am comfortable in the Mazda CX-5. I found the visibility to be better, and I was just so ecstatic. Driving back to the dealership, I thought, oh my gosh, I finally have a winner, and I cannot wait for this vehicle to come in 2 weeks, if not less. Now, unfortunately, something happened at the dealership immediately following my test drive that left me so upset that I considered immediately pulling out of the deal. And possibly going into the other city to the Mazda dealership there. I'm not going to explain it in detail right now. I don't want to do that until I have keys in hand. But basically, after my test drive of this Mazda CX-5 they had, I spoke with my sales rep, who up to this point I have had a great professional relationship with. And they said something that was very disrespectful and very unprofessional. And it was just so out of left field. I left the dealership so upset that I thought I should just immediately pull out of the deal. I wondered driving all the way home if I should just call the dealership and tell them that it's off, because I just felt so bad. I couldn't believe what had happened immediately following that test drive and immediately before I left the dealership. I will talk about that more once I hopefully actually have the car. But it left me feeling horrible, and I wondered if I should pull out, but I've decided not to. I'm just going to be a quiet little princess, and just wait until papers are signed and keys are in my hand, because I don't want to go through the hassle of pulling out of this deal, having to drive to the other city, to the other Mazda dealership, and waiting who knows how long for a car of my specifications to come in, although it wasn't a long wait at all at this dealership. But yeah, that's something very unfortunate that happened. I'll talk about it next time. But other than that, The Mazda CX-5 was just fantastic, and I have one coming in 2 weeks or less, hopefully. But there's 2 other cars I test drove, so how did that go? I went to Subaru first, but first I'm going to talk about the Honda. So I test drove the Honda HR-V. They had one on the lot of the top level trim, the $40,000 trim, and I test drove it. Now, a lot of you guys told me that I absolutely had to test drive the Honda HR-V. Have you actually sat in one? Those of you who told me that I needed to drive one, have you sat in one? Have you driven one yourself? It had the hardest seats of any of the vehicles that I had driven by far. I'm talking rock hard seats. It was just like sitting in a wooden chair. I couldn't believe it. A $40,000 vehicle, leather, full leather seats, and the seats were hard as a rock. It was a very short test drive. But yeah, that was an easy strike off my list. I was laughing during the test drive. I thought, I can't believe one of the most prestige car brands in the world have put these kind of seats in a $40,000 subcompact crossover. I don't think the Mitsubishi Mirage my mom test drove for fun had seats that hard. It was insane. So that's the Honda HR-V. Thank you for convincing me to test drive it. I say that genuinely because I wasn't going to test drive it, and you guys said I should to make my research most complete. You're right, so I did. So, before Honda, I went to Subaru to test drive a Crosstrek. Now, Subaru did not have a new Crosstrek that I could test drive. They were all sold, all the ones they had on the lot. Sales rep told me that it's their most popular vehicle right now. I believe it. It's their cheapest car after all, or at least their cheapest crossover. I don't know if it's their cheapest car because they're still the Impreza, but it might be their cheapest car overall. So I couldn't test drive a new Crosstrek, but they did have a 2023 used Crosstrek. It had 30,000 some kilometers on it that I could test drive, so I did. It was the most comfortable vehicle by far of all the vehicles I had test driven. It was so comfortable, even more than the Mazda CX-5. It was a revelation, just like I wondered if I would have. The seats were very soft. Visually, they have quite high bolstering, but it's not firm like Mazda had or some of the other cars had. It's very soft, pillowy bolstering. It just flattens right out when you sit on it. It's purely visual. The seats were so soft and so comfortable. And I thought I wouldn't be a fan of the driving position because the Subaru has the lowest driving position of all the cars. I think it has the most ground clearance. Or maybe the Nissan Qashqai has more ground clearance, I'm not sure. But it's certainly one of the highest in ground clearance. But otherwise, the car as a whole is the lowest. Lowest roofline, and the most, reclined seating position. And I thought I wouldn't like that compared to a normal crossover where you sit higher up. But I actually liked it more, and I think it was mostly because it's the most like the Focus. But yeah, I was supremely comfortable in this used Crosstrek. And I thought, oh my gosh, is this gonna beat the Mazda CX-5? Now, I knew that Subaru made changes between 2023 and 2024 to the Crosstrek. So, luckily, they were able to let me sit in one of the new Crosstreks that they sold. I couldn't drive it, but I could sit in it. And unfortunately, between 2023 and 2024, Subaru changed something, and the driver's compartment is not as wide, and I was not as comfortable in the seat at all. I'm not sure if it was even as comfortable as the Mazda CX-5. The seat itself was fine, but once again the seatbelt buckle was poking into my thigh. which wasn't even close to an issue in the 2023. So yeah, that is something they changed, which is really unfortunate. Because dang it, if I had been as comfortable in the 2024, I think I would have put a deposit down, and I may have gotten a Crosstrek. But between the 24 models not being nearly as comfortable as the 23, and also between my belief that Subaru is not going to be as reliable as Mazda, I decided to stick with the Mazda. Now, I could have bought that used 2023 Subaru, but they actually wanted more for it than a new 2024 one, because it was one or two trim levels higher. It was actually more. It was like $36,000 versus 34 for something with 30,000 kilometers on it. And I already had reservations about buying a new Subaru. I was not going to buy a used Subaru. But that's unfortunate, but it was very funny to find out that otherwise, I really, really liked it and may have bought one. But I'm sticking with the Mazda CX-5. As far as I'm concerned, my research is complete and the Mazda CX-5 is the winner. I am very excited for this one I have coming in a couple of weeks to come. I'm very nervous. I'm very anxious. I'm nervous because the CX-5 I test drove was a GT trim, one trim level above what I'm getting, which had leather seats. The one I'm getting, the GS trim, has leatherette seats, so fake leather. And also the seats are slightly different themselves because the GT has full power seats with memory, whereas the GS has partial power seats. The lumbar is manual and there's no memory functionality. And then of course there's the different material. It shouldn't be any less comfortable, but I found all of two accounts online of people who also test drove both. One person said the leatherette was more comfortable than the leather. Great. The other person said the leatherette was less comfortable than the leather. Great. So I'm just going to have to wait for this GS trim car to come. And hopefully hopefully I am just as comfortable in it. And hopefully I don't get any more really spontaneous, out of left field, unfortunate treatment from my sales rep, because I am still very, very upset about that. But I'm just going to grin and bear it until the keys are in my hand. So that's it for now. My new car research is complete. I'm not going to bother test driving anything else unless some unforeseen circumstance comes up, like the CX-5 I have coming is way less comfortable than the one I test drove somehow. So hopefully the next time you guys see me in a video talking about cars, I'll be making the video sitting in my new car. But you'll just have to wait and see. So thank you so much for watching this video and the previous parts, and thank you for your suggestions. It really helps. You convinced me to test drive two cars that I otherwise wouldn't have. So thank you for that. And I look forward to hopefully coming to you from my new car, and I hope you are too. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Come on, get in.
Want me to get you a call now?
Sure, thank you.
Hi, Maud. Hello. 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 I miss you too. Maud. I know. We're here. Maud.
Oh, get back. Back there.